Hola a todos, espero que ustedes estén bien. Hoy vamos a discutir los tres usos del verbo haber en español. So today we are going to talk about the three uses of the verb haber. Now, before we get into the uses of haber, it is worth noting that haber, the verb, has the same sound as the interjection haber, which means let's see. So these are examples of homophones, and the only way to know the difference will be context, right? So in terms of haber, haber has two translations, right? Primarily. It has two translations. So it can be translated as to be or to have. And this is different to those other verbs that you're thinking of which have these translations, which would be ser and estar, ser or estar, and tener. This is not the same as those. Those are different, okay? So when it comes to uses now, the verb haber has three uses. It can be used to talk about existence, it can be used as an auxiliary verb, and it can be used to talk about obligations, okay? So those are the three uses of the verb haber. So let's begin with existence, and in this case it will be translated as to be. Once again, it's not the same as ser, right? It can be used to talk about the existence of something or someone. It would translate as there is or there are. Of course, you would use the one which is appropriate in terms, which corresponds to the noun in terms of number. So if we have a singular noun, we are going to use there is. And if we have a plural noun, we are going to use there are, right? However, it is only used in the third person singular. Now that is something that you need to bear in mind. When we are talking about existence, we always use haber in the third person singular, even if we have a plural subject. That's how haber works in Spanish. It is always used in the third person singular when we are using it to talk about existence, right? And as you will see, haber is an irregular verb, right? Hay una casa ahí. There is a house there. Right? Había dos personas en el carro. There were two persons in the car. It would be incorrect to say habían dos personas en el carro. If we were to put haber in the plural form, third person plural, it would be wrong. Because remember, we only use haber in the third person singular when we are talking about existence. Therefore, había dos personas en el carro. And of course, this would be present tense, and this would be the imperfect tense, right? Habrá una tormenta. There will be a storm. This will be future tense. So when we are dealing with the concept of existence or the theme of existence, haber is going to translate as to be, and it is only going to be used in the third person singular, right? Good. 2, auxiliary verb, and in this case it would translate as to have, but it's not the same as tener. It can be used to form compound tenses. Compound tenses referring to tenses which involve the use of more than one verb. And in those tenses, we are going to have a helping verb and then a verb in either the infinitive or in the infinitive, the continuous, or the continuous, infinitive, or past participle, what we will call impersonal forms, right? it will mean to have in the perfect tense, right? So we usually use haber to express the perfect tense. And in that case, haber will be the auxiliary verb, the verb that lends assistance to the main verb, okay? He bebido mucho vino. I have drunk a lot of wine. Of course, the main verb in that sentence would be beber, which means to drink, but the haber in that case would be an auxiliary verb. So haber in this context is giving us the tense. It's in the present tense, right? So this is the present perfect. Remember, the present perfect comprises haber, the present tense of haber, and the past participle of the main verb. Therefore, haber is giving us two things, okay? It is providing it tells us who is performing the action as well as the time, the tense. So that would be an auxiliary verb. He bebido mucho vino. I have drunk a lot of wine, right? Conversely, ya lo habíamos comprado. We had already bought it. This is the past perfect because we have habíamos, right? Which would be the imperfect tense. And the past perfect in Spanish is formed by using the imperfect form of haber followed by the past participle. So once again, the main verb would be comprar, which means to buy, and habíamos is giving us two pieces of information. It is telling us who is the subject, and it is telling us the time, which would be past tense, right? So yes, we can also use haber in continuous tenses. For example, hemos estado estudiando español por 2 horas. We have been studying Spanish for 2 hours. So this is like the present perfect continuous because you have haber, you have the past participle of estar, and then you have the gerund of estudiar. So that would be the present perfect continuous. Hemos estado estudiando español por 2 horas. We have been studying Spanish for 2 hours. Yep. All right. So that's number 2. Thirdly, obligations. We can use haber to express obligations. And in this case, it would translate as must. But we need more information to be used with haber. Haber itself cannot express obligation, right? It has to be within a structure. So we have haber de followed by the infinitive, and then we have haber que followed by the infinitive. And I'm sure you're going to ask yourselves, what is the difference? Well, let's see. Haber, right? So when it comes to haber de plus the infinitive, this is personal, right? This is going to be used when we want to refer to a specific person, right? This is what it's called personal. Haz de hacer ejercicio. You should work out, or you must work out. You will see that haber is conjugated according to the second person singular, which is tú, right? Haz de hacer ejercicio. So in this context, haber de will be the same as tener que, right? So this is a structure that indicates obligation, and it is used to refer to specific persons, okay? So I could say, tienes que hacer ejercicio. You have to work out. You see? So remember, haber de followed by the infinitive is going to be used to refer to a specific person. Similarly, he de desayunar. I must eat breakfast. Or I should eat breakfast. I could also say, tengo que desayunar. That's right. I have to eat breakfast. Yep. Now, when it comes to the impersonal usage, we always use the third person. Well, yes, the third person singular, yes. When it comes to the impersonal usage. So we would have alluded to this earlier. Then we talked about existence, okay? Haber que followed by the infinitive. So this is not going to refer to anyone specific, right? Hay que despertarse temprano. One should wake up early. You could also translate this as it is necessary to wake up early. Yeah, you can also translate it that way because it's impersonal, right? So it does not refer to anyone specific. One should wake up early. And as you see, if you use a reflexive verb, the reflexive pronoun must agree with the, well, it's impersonal, so it will have to be se, right? If we were to use a reflexive pronoun in the prior example, we would have to say, okay, let's use an example. Let's use the same verb despertarse, right? Has de despertarte temprano. You should wake up early. So you see the reflexive pronoun changes because we're referring to someone specific, right? Has de despertarte temprano. You must or you should wake up early. So yeah, just remember that. But with haber que, because it's impersonal, you always would use the third person, right? Okay? Hay que estudiar. One must study, or it is necessary to study. Yes. And of course, I have the reminder here that the third person singular conjugation is always used when we are talking, when we're using haber impersonally, right? Yes, so these are three uses of the verb haber in Spanish, okay? So once again, it can be used to talk about existence, it can be used as an auxiliary verb, and it can be used to express obligation. When it comes to existence, it will translate as to be, and it is always used in the third person singular, even if we have a plural subject. When it comes to, and when it is used as an auxiliary verb, it will translate as to have, and it will agree with the subject, right? Because it lends assistance to the main verb. It tells us it gives us two pieces of information. It tells us who is performing the action as well as the time, right? So this is why it is referred to as an auxiliary verb. Thirdly, it can be used to express obligations. And there are two structures. We have haber de followed by the infinitive, and we use this to refer to specific persons, which is why it is a synonym of tener que, okay? And we have haber que followed by the infinitive. And this is impersonal, so this is always going to be translated. This is always going to be used in the third person singular. And it can translate as one must, one should, or it can translate as it is necessary. Alright? So these are the three uses of the verb haber. Eso es todo por hoy. Muchas gracias por ver y nos vemos.